Unified Communications helps increase productivity through the convergence of communication channels and business processes. Lance Mehaffey, Director, Healthcare Market, discusses the benefits of unified communications for healthcare.
When you look at the current environment in healthcare when it comes to productivity and the lack of convergence and putting communication devices into the hands of the clinicians, there is really a lot of productivity lost. Let me provide some examples. The average nurse in a given shift, and by the way, these are very conservative numbers, will spend nearly 176 miles of walking annually to do nothing more than return an overhead page or to return to a centrally located telephone within the medical center environment. Now, if you take that same nurse and you enable that nurse with unified communications, for example, a peer-to-peer IP wireless LAN badge, often referred to as Vocera, we can minimize that number of steps and we can keep that nurse out on the floor and minimize, if not reduce, that 176 miles a year in walking. You're not only enabling staff to be more productive, you're enabling that nurse to be out on the floor more in front of that patient, but ultimately you're creating a more efficient, organized work environment, which in a soft dollar term can actually create greater job retention, especially considering the burgeoning nurse shortage that the healthcare environment is experiencing today. During that intervention with a patient, a nurse has to dialogue with an interdisciplinary care team. Could be other nurses, could be the pharmacy, it could be emergency medicine, and many times throughout the shift it's going to be in communication with other physicians. What's critical and a key element behind NEC's unified communication strategy, and specific to our healthcare communications portal, is first and foremost, it provides that nurse who her contacts are. Who does she need to reach amongst these many interdisciplinary team members? Secondly, it provides her a single access to presence management, or what is the status of these people within the medical center environment? Where are they? What's their status? Are they on-premise? Are they off-premise? Third, it allows her to notify and understand what is the preference. How can these people be reached? What is the best way to reach these other interdisciplinary team members? And finally, the solution puts forward a variety of messaging opportunities so she can reach these people at different points during the patient care intervention. What is the real financial value behind unified communications to a medical center environment? Really, the financial battle within a hospital environment is won and lost within emergency medicine. How quickly we can get that patient admitted and into that inpatient status and ultimately cared for and discharged is where that financial performance comes to play in a medical center environment. For any of you that have ever been in the hospital or known someone who has been, you know that that last half day is spent primarily waiting for the discharge paperwork to be formalized and that patient discharge. Through the deployment of NEC's unified communication solutions, as we've discussed, you can shore up that workflow model and ultimately shorten that length of stay. By the deployment of the communications portal, the soft phone client, and other unified communications technologies, we can ultimately lower expenses per occupied bed, lower full-time equivalents or the number of staff that is required for each bed, and ultimately improve net operating profitability for that hospital. As we've reviewed some of the key tenets of NEC's unified communication strategy, we've talked about getting information and communications where it's needed and when it's needed. And in the healthcare environment, that's at the patient bedside or wherever that clinician is across the medical campus. We've talked about and reviewed financial performance, workflow management performance, and ultimately the mobility enhancements behind NEC's unified communication strategy. I encourage you to learn more about NEC's unified communication strategy and the various solutions that comprise our unified communications portfolio. Please visit the NEC website